Today, joining me is Tim Schilling, and we are going to talk about his case and some of the things that are going on there that I think you're going to be very interested in. So, before we do that, though, Tim, would you spend a minute just introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name's Tim Schilling. I'm a parental rights advocate in Pennsylvania. I started my horrifying nightmare in December of 2013. And just like everybody else around the United States, I filed for divorce, custody, equitable distribution. And during this time, I went through 9 different attorneys. I lost everything. I was homeless. I was parentally alienated from my daughter for about 3.5, maybe 4 years. And they was just attacking me from every which side. I was in 9 different cases in the anti-family court system alone.
Let's start from the beginning. So you got divorced, did you say in 2009?
No, 2013 is whenever I filed for divorce. There was a PFA on me and it got dismissed that time.
Okay, and a PFA is that the East Coast equivalent of a restraining order?
Correct. Well, it's something like it's a protection from abuse order that was magically created whenever I filed divorce.
Yeah, I think that's a common game plan. It's a negotiation tactic. But so this was she asked for it. The judge denied it eventually?
Yeah, we had a hearing about it, and my attorney created a stipulation agreement where she has the house for a year and supposed to maintain it, which she didn't. And, she don't get alimony and stuff, and I make all the house payments and insurance payments, which was a lot. But it got dismissed. It got denied.
Okay, so what part of it got denied? The PFA?
Everything.
Oh, everything. Even the stipulation?
Well, no, we had a stipulation agreement, like I said, for me to make the house payment and insurance payments.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. It was all
they didn't use. We all know it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Did you use the PFA? Did they use the PFA to get that? Did they negotiate that?
Correct.
As part of their leverage?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Silver bullet technique. After I found out, I didn't know. I was a naive parent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting. Most people don't know this, but that is a standard tactic. It's used all the time. It's to get a foot up. I mean, let's just take myself out of giving legal advice or anything else. If you looked at this as a game, that's the first thing that anyone should do, because you don't get punished if you lose, but it gives you a hell of a leg up if you start with it. So if you had filed it, you would have given the big leg up. Everyone knows it. The judges know it. The attorneys know it. The bar knows it. They don't do shit about it. Okay, so let's keep going. From there, what happened? When did the case start getting squirrely?
Well, I was really pushing. They took my guns during this time, so I paid my attorney to get them back. He never did that. That was the next step. Completely just ignored it. But it took me 5 years to get my guns back after that. But
why is that?
Because whenever you have a PFA in Pennsylvania, they automatically take your firearms. In other words, they violate your Second Amendment. So even though you never committed any crimes or did anything wrong, they do this. And if you don't file a motion to return the firearms, guess what? You don't get your firearms back.
Right.
Complete violation of your Second Amendment. Absolutely.
Even the temporary order, I think, is unconstitutional because it's not a criminal charge. It's more of a whatever family law is. I can't quite describe it yet. But it's
you're already a criminal. You're already
exactly.
There's no due process. It's a violation of the 14th Amendment.
Anyone listening to this, we've covered this over and over again. Not to cut you off, but anyone's ever listened to any of these podcasts, we go through this over and over again. Again, something the government does to take your rights away without any due process, or without even if you were given a PFA over a preponderance of the evidence, which is a 51% standard, which is bullshit. They still take your guns away, which I still think is a violation of your Second Amendment right. And I'm surprised no one's tried to challenge this in federal court. Okay, so it took 5 years to get your guns back. What next?
Well, anyway, it was 2014. I wanted to get my custody rights established, and they was just dicking around like they do to everybody else in the United States. All of a sudden, I became a monster. It was a week before mediation. My ex-wife took my daughter to a psychologist that said horrifying things about me. It wasn't even true. And we had a mediation, and I didn't know none of this stuff. It was the
Of course not.
what she told the psychologist. They didn't want me to have no custody rights, and I didn't know this. I went into mediation, not knowing any of this, and
Well,
my
how come your
attorney.
attorney didn't tell you?
No, it was all set up. I went to a mediation. I wasn't allowed to be a part of it, and that my attorney went in, her attorney went in, and a mediator, which is a bunch of shit. I should have been in there, but I didn't know this. I'm a naive parent, just like everybody else. My attorney came out and said I got equal rights and all this other stuff. I said, "Oh, okay, good." So I signed a paper. He went in, he came back out, and he said, "Now you're going to have reunification counseling and supervised visits," which I was
Yeah.
flipping out because I already seen my daughter. Uh, I had it all documented. Me and my ex-wife was fine. The attorneys created this nonsense to put me in this
Yeah.
stuff. So now I'm stuck in it.
Well,
And
they know. Hold on, they know that you're going to pay your way out of it. You'll do anything to see your kids. It's
exactly, I
outright
had to
mafia.
pay.
It's outright mafia behavior.
Exactly. I had to pay to see my own child, and I didn't do anything wrong. My attorney set me up. I didn't realize it at the time.
Why do you think they set you? Why do you think he set you up, though? I hear this often, and I'm on the fence about it. But why do you think he set you up?
Well, at that particular time in my life, I was making good money. I was a Pennsylvania Boilermaker. I worked out at 154 Union Hall, and I made a lot of money. So I suspect, okay, it was all about the money because they kept wanting me to pay for everything. It was pay, 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 pay. And
Were
I
you paying for
suspect the money was the main driving force on their decision to try to come after me like this.
Were you paying for her attorney fees?
They tried. I beat them on it. That's on a later date, though.
Okay, but the first thing they do is in California is they take what's called an FL 150 to see how much money you have. Did they do that in Pennsylvania?
Well, my attorney, I didn't know this until later on after I became pretty good at the Pennsylvania law. We was actually supposed to be filing a form. It's called an inventory form, an expense statement, according to the Pennsylvania law. My attorney did not do this whenever I filed for a divorce, and neither did the opposing party. They was hiding the assets so that way they could rob everything and give it to my ex-wife at that particular time, and they could rob whatever they want out of it.
Okay.
Pretty sneaky.
Did he know you had a lot of money?
Yeah, I wasn't like loaded, but I did pretty well for myself at that particular time in my life.
Yeah. But how did he know that? Did you tell him, or how did you find that out?
Well, whenever you tell your attorney, you have to tell them exactly where you work at and what you do for a living. And it's not a rocket science. All they have to do is hit a couple of buttons and they can look up and see how much a Boilermaker makes, almost 100,000 a year. So that's pretty common knowledge. Simple click of a button, they already know.
And you owned your house?
I was paying on it. We had a mortgage on it.
Yeah, but you owned had equity in the house.
Oh, yeah. I had it almost half paid off, over half.
Okay. Yeah, because I always look at how in California you have to first thing you do is you tell them everything you got, assets, income, all that kind of stuff, and then I not all of them, but a lot of them do a mental calculation. Okay, let's just round it up to $1 million. They got $1 million net worth. We're going to take 300,000 of it. I mean, this is common knowledge here in California.
It's the same thing around the United States. They did it in PA. Yeah. I mean, I did tell them everything I had, but according to Pennsylvania law, you're supposed to be filing an inventory, which they didn't do.
Right. Your attorney didn't know well, he probably did know, but did you ever? Is there such a thing in Pennsylvania as going to arbitration to get your money back with these attorneys?
Well, actually, I have an ongoing lawsuit against 2 attorneys now, and I'm getting everything together about it. That was in 2016, not to jump ahead and confuse everybody. But
we'll get to that.
Yeah. Whenever you file a bar complaint in Pennsylvania, it's called a grieving process. You can actually request for a grievance and have a mediator involved, or something like a mediator, I guess you can say, to try to get your money back, what you paid for the attorney. Now, if you want to sue an attorney in Pennsylvania, like, what's in my case, you have to have another attorney and you have to have them see that the damage that was done to you, and they have to create a certificate of merit in order to sue an attorney in Pennsylvania. You just can't go do it. There has to be another attorney involved that gives you this, believe it or not.
Okay. Interesting process there. So then, all right, let's keep moving forward in your case. So what's the big next event to happen?
Well, after I got this bullshit custody order in the anti-family court system, I was trying to get my attorney to get this nonsense dropped. Well, in the meantime, I was going to a very biased and very corrupt, I should say. It was a reunification counseling center. Um, it was just nasty. They created, they billed my insurance company for days I wasn't even there, making up this false diagnosis of me. It wasn't even true. Then at the supervised visit place, they was being told by my ex that I had bipolar and schizophrenic and all these horrible things. It wasn't even true. And it was like all these people was ganging up on me and they hated me. And I couldn't even say anything.
Common. It's common. I hate to say it.
Exactly.
I've had many people have gone through the same thing. I'm wondering if it's like a racket. Like these are people all know each other and they all refer each other around, and they know that they're going to extract as much money out of you as possible. Obviously, I can't prove that yet, but we're going to get there. I've got some whistleblowers that are going to come on.
Exactly. I mean,
it's
not so much. You were right. Okay, you were right, and same with everybody in the United States. You can't prove it. But here's the thing. If you look at something and you see the evidence, you know it's true, no matter what they try to tell you. It's too many times it's happening to parents around the United States for it not to be a coincidence.
They don't.
It's a game plan.
They don't expect us to talk, but I probably talked to 1,000 people.
I did too. I talked to a lot of them, and it's all the same process.
I've heard this many, many times.
Exactly. It's the same process. It's like they're being taught this to create. The more chaos that they create in the anti-family court system, the more money they get. It's a simple fact. Everybody knows it around the United States. They happen to me, you, every parent, including mothers around the United States.
Yeah, it's not just dads. I went in just thinking it was dads, but moms get hit with it too. I think it's whoever's got the most money is the primary target. Doesn't always end up being the target.
Exactly. And in this day and age, I know a lot of fathers' rights group, and I know mothers' rights groups. They want to put the mothers and fathers against one another to get everybody sidetracked off their real problems. The anti-family court system itself, the employees, everybody that's working for them. They want the other parents hating one another so they can just keep like sharks, like coming in and taking little bites, and while you're distracted hating the other parent. It happened to me. It happens to everybody. And then I realized what was going on. So then I started attacking the system instead of my ex-wife.
Yeah, that's a conclusion I kind of came to as well. And some people get there, some people don't. The thing where I push back a little bit on that is they know what's happening. I mean, they see it. They know they're making false allegations that are working. Then I say, okay, yeah, the system's allowing it, which is causing them to do it, but they still did it. There's not a chance in the world I would do 90% of these things to anyone I was ever married to, or especially had kids with. So
exactly. And a lot of the
what's that say about them? They're not off the hook. But the system
no, but a lot of the people that they don't know this around the country. I know the Pennsylvania law quite well now after my ordeal of 7-8 years. But a lot of people around the country don't know. If they started doing some research like I did, the reason why they lie is because they have judicial privilege.
Yeah,
like in Pennsylvania, it's a case law that, in other words, they can lie their ass off and you can't do anything about it, which is bullshit. It's perjury. It's under Pennsylvania Chapter 18, 4903, or 09. It's crazy.
You can sue her civilly. And I'm speaking firsthand. You can sue her civilly, not necessarily for the lying part, but for what happened as a result of the lying. Yeah. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, we're seeing that in the Johnny Depp case.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's defamation.
Yeah, well, it's the same process. In Pennsylvania, they have it abusive process, wrongful use of civil proceedings, stuff like this that you can go after the other party for. It's different in every state.
Like the restraining order is a leverage piece for the other client or other party. I do the same. For me, if I were in your shoes, I'd have a civil suit because in that civil suit, I can depose the kids. I can depose anyone I want, and I do. And I use that in the family case. Even if the family judge is so corrupt, they don't allow that testimony in the family case, I still write it into every pleading.
Well, see, there's always different ways to go about it. After I started understanding it after years later, I wasn't filing a suit against my ex-wife. I just want peace in my life with my daughter and to move on with my life without all this drama in the
Yeah.
anti-family court system. And so,
You're forced into it.
yeah, I didn't want to sue. I'd rather go after the system instead of suing the ex directly, because it takes away a lot of your focus and your time on trying to resolve the real issues, the subject matter, like custody, child support, what other nonsense they throw in it. Like me, I was
Yeah.
in 9 different cases. I didn't have time to sue that.
No, no,
So
no. But that's because you're
I
so
had to keep out of jail. you know,
yeah.
you know.
You have to keep out of jail. We got to get there.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So I
let's
had to
move
tackle
along.
all these other ones.
So what happened next after you get this bullshit psychology report that says you need to have supervised visits and reunification therapy, which is such bullshit. I
Yeah,
don't
I
even.
didn't
I
even.
think I'm going to have a podcast just on reunification therapy and have therapists that have called me on this just to talk about it. But keep going.
Yeah, because of my ordeal, I don't even trust reunification counselors or therapists, or there's a lot of good psychologists in that, but I really don't even trust it. I think it causes more chaos and more anarchy in the anti-family court system in your case. I after a while during this time, I didn't understand this, but I was reading about it. There's a blueprint. It's called um, uh, Save Mothers or searchmothers.com. It's a blueprint on how to attack fathers on the abusive part. And whenever I was reading about it, it was almost a carbon copy of what was happening to me.
Yeah.
And I could see what was happening. So I could adjust to my mental state to try to fight this. I mean, it's kind of hard to explain, but every parent goes through it. And, some people fall for it and some people don't. Like me, I was fighting against it. And I had to keep fighting against it. I filed a complaint against the place. I went through the Pennsylvania District Attorney's Office. They found them. They had to hire the best attorney in Pennsylvania down by Philadelphia. They didn't do anything about it because they couldn't. It's like an arbitration. But they did have to give the money back. So now all their bullshit that they said against me, I discredited all their bullshit that they said about me, because now I can say I found out about the money, which I did. So they created this bogus nonsense about me to shut me up. So that's how I stopped that nonsense. But I had to fight for it.
Yep. Well, you had to fight for it, and most dads or moms aren't knowledgeable or motivated, or they have a real job, or they can't take the time to do it. And that's what the courts are relying on. But it's pretty sick to realize that these people are doing this and destroying the father or mother relationship with the child. Isn't it disturbing to you? It's like evil.
It's very evil. I mean, most of us around the United States don't know any of this stuff, especially whenever we get into it. We think the court system is going to be just and fair.
Right.
That's what we all believe in. I mean, I did. I'm sure you did. Everybody does.
Yeah,
but after you start going into court, you start seeing firsthand, whenever you do tell the truth gets ignored and denied. And it gets covered up with a lie, which therefore becomes truth, which is complete nonsense. And at a later date, as we're moving forward in time, I was a pro se litigant 2 other times before that. I wrote horrible pleadings. I used their templates. I didn't know nothing. I was stupid. I didn't even graduate high school, for crying out loud. I'm not dumb, but being in the court system, you don't know nothing, and I was no different than anybody else.
Well, think of it as a big rule book that's dropped on you day one. That
exactly
dictionary bigger that you are expected to know day one. That's this fair system that they're talking about. And if you can't afford an attorney, that's your problem.
They got everybody believing that no one can represent themselves as a pro se. Okay. Yeah. And there's a lot of groups around the United States. They create the sui juris stuff and sovereign, which will never help anyone in the United States in the anti-family court system. They want you to do this stuff so they can deny you everything. Yeah, it's crazy what people do. But the basic aspect, what I've learned throughout my case, is that I had to keep following the Pennsylvania Rules of Civil Procedures, the Constitution, the local rules, and any jurisdiction I was in. That includes the appeals court. I had to read the rules. The federal court, the federal bankruptcy, in 3 different cases, believe it or not, and in the United States Supreme Court. I had to follow all the rules. I didn't do this sovereign stuff because it's a time bomb, and you'll never win in court. You'll never see your kids again. You have to play in their ballpark, and you have to do everything that they want. but you got to become better than them. And it's hard.
What I have found is that if you box a judge, finally, I think we've had 7 recusals or recalls of our judges, but I've got 2 good ones now. You still have to box them in as a pro per because they're automatically, a lot of them are lazy and they'll just take the side of opposing counsel because, oh, they're an attorney and they're supposed to play fair and all that, which we know they don't. They'll just take their word for it. So you got to cite code, you got to cite case law, you have to box the judge into the right decision. And if you don't do that, you're rolling the dice.
Oh, exactly. A lot of parents around the United States don't have to do this. I know that the last time I tried to be a pro se litigant, well, I did. I had an attorney on record, and according to Pennsylvania law, the attorney has to be removed and the judge has to grant it with a court order before you can even enter your appearance as a pro se litigant. A lot of parents don't know this. And then they keep them on there and then they can't figure out what's going on. But that's a huge thing for parents in Pennsylvania. They have to have the attorney removed. And at this time, I was trying to get the judge, to get the attorney off. I had a hearing the next day. I went out there 3 days in a row, and this clerk was denying me my rights to file anything on record until that attorney was removed. Well, it was the day before the hearing, and I went out there and I asked the clerk, I said, hey, I need to file my pleadings. I got a hearing the next day. And then she said, no, the judge won't allow it. So I used the law against her. I told her, I said, well, can you tell the judge? Very politely I was. And there's a sheriff right behind me ready to arrest me, believe it or not. I got out of hand. And I was very polite and very nice. I used my head. I said, can you please tell the honorable judge that according to Chapter 18, Title 53, 5301, official oppression, that if the honorable president judge doesn't allow me to represent myself and allow me to file my pleadings, that I will have no choice but to call 911 and have a nice police officer file any and all documentation necessary in my case. And you will have 1/2 hour to do this. And could you please also tell the honorable president judge that according to Chapter 18, Title 53, Title 52, 5302 and 5303, that I will have the honorable judge pay for any and all fees throughout the duration of my entire case. Now, whenever I said this, you could have heard a pin drop in the sanitary's office because I'm going to have the judge arrested, which I do have my rights.
Yeah.
They hurried up, brought attorneys in.
Back up a second. So you can arrest a judge in Pennsylvania for what exactly?
It's called official oppression. It's not more or less arresting. I shouldn't have said that. That's wrong of me to do that. It's pressing charges against a judge for official oppression. Every state should have something like this. Whenever a judge is acting out beyond his jurisdiction, I guess you could say. Now it's called official oppression.
Subject matter or venue?
Well, like me, they was denying me my rights of filing in court, which I do have a right to. And that's official oppression. He's supposed to be following the law, not trying to be a dictator. And official oppression stops that. So whenever I did that, I put a stop to it.
So wait. I just want to study this for a second because I don't think we have this in California. Okay. We have the concept of a citizen's arrest, but I don't know of any police officer that's actually going to arrest the judge. But so in Pennsylvania, they have this concept of oppression where if you feel oppressed, or does it have to meet a certain criteria? And then
well, there's a rule for it. Like I said, it's called official oppression. Whenever a judge or a public figure in Pennsylvania tries to oppress another individual of their rights, that's a criminal crime in Pennsylvania. And I use that statute to get my filings done.
I mean, let's say he or she, whatever, I don't know, your judge, continue to ignore it. Who's going to enforce it? This is what I find to be a joke.
Yeah, well, it is a joke because, after I did that, they were scared because I started learning a little bit. And so they allowed me to represent myself because they didn't want me to file a police report against the judge for official oppression. That's huge. That would have been huge. So they stopped me from it.
You have a statute. Okay, so you could at least file it and it'd be on record, and then police would ignore it, but at least it's on file. You could keep pointing to it as in the appellate court if you needed to go there. Okay, let's keep going.
Well, after that, then I got set up with no due process to pay attorney fees and pay a master fee or whatever it was at the time. Next day.
Who's attorney fees?
My ex-wife. I guess the attorney, whenever I did this, they filed a motion right after I filed this stuff, and I didn't even know nothing about it. We went to a hearing for a continuance. That's what my hearing was about over the house. And I didn't even know nothing about this pleading that they filed. Well, they created an order that I have to pay this fee, and I didn't even know nothing about it. No due process whatsoever. I didn't even know nothing about it. They set me up like they do a lot of parents in the beginning. Naive, didn't know nothing.
So what's the fee? It's a fee to be a pro per? I mean, you're going pro per, afford it usually.
It's called a divorce master. Not a divorce master, but as far as the equitable distribution. And we were supposed to go in front of a master after I found out what happened. And I'm supposed to pay hers. It discusses over the equitable distribution claim for the marital property to be dispersed.
Does this take place with two attorneys in Pennsylvania, if there's two, or is it only appointed once there's a pro per?
Whenever there's a motion filed for it, they have to file for a motion to appoint a master.
Okay, and this master has got judicial immunity?
Of course. They give everybody immunity in PA.
All right, let's keep going.
But
I think I know it, but keep going.
Yeah, but anyway, make a really long story short, but I started learning a little bit more, and I'll backtrack a little bit before that. My attorney that I had, I think it was like my fourth attorney, he filed bankruptcy for my ex-wife without me knowing about it. Didn't have any clue about it. I found out later on what he did, and I was pissed. It's a conflict of interest, of course. But what they did was, because we was getting ready to sell the house. It would have paid off all our bills, everything. Okay. Yeah. She would have been free and clear, me and free and clear and everything. But my attorney collaborated with her attorney. So he filed bankruptcy. Well, now she didn't list the pension and annuity in there as exempt. The house all of a sudden was magically taken over by the trustee. Now we can't sell the damn property. Now I'm really screwed because now child support industry is coming at me for money over this stuff. Okay. This was all done by design to destroy my life and to try to throw me in jail, because if they would have sold the house, I could have paid off, got caught up in my child support at that time. It was a design tactic for us to take our house, and we lost the house because of that.
Wow.
Yeah, so, my attorney, I filed a bar complaint. First I had to hire another attorney.
Yeah, why weren't you in court stopping this shit?
Well, I had to hire an attorney, and he filed a motion to remove him because of the conflict of interest. Well, I filed a bar complaint at the time. They denied it, believe it or not. Complete bullshit. Oh, they didn't follow the law at all. They denied it. So after I got an attorney and filed it in the federal court and had him removed, the very next day or something, then they filed charges against that attorney for doing that in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And I did get him reprimanded, but I didn't get nothing.
The bar denies it, but then the Supreme Court files charges?
Well, no, the Supreme Court, it's like the Pennsylvania Bar Association has to go through the Supreme Court and all that stuff. So they accepted my complaint against the attorney, and they actually disciplinary the attorney later on. But it was already too late. I was involved in a bankruptcy in 2015, and I just recently got it done with, believe it or not. That's how long it took me to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. So, wow. All right. Let's keep going. This is a fun case.
Yeah, I feel bad for a lot of people. I don't want to confuse people about stuff. There's just so much that we all go through.
I think they can learn from it. This is about teaching, right?
Exactly. And I want to see people do the right things and not the wrong things.
Right.
Because that's the only way you're ever going to win in court, which I'll describe later on.
Our first episode, Michael and I did, was we talked about don't get into this mess. It doesn't matter if you're male, female. I think females have the advantage slightly, but it's not a guarantee. Just don't get into it, because depending on one corrupt actor could destroy everything, including your relationship.
Exactly. What I call it is they need to create the targeted parent. And they need a Goldilocks parent to go along with it to create this bullshit against targeted parents.
That's so true. All right, let's keep going. I like those terms you use, the Goldilocks parent. The targeted parent, to me, is obvious, but the Goldilocks parent's funny. All right, so now you're at a point where your house is taken away from you. You got nothing out of it, right?
No, I didn't get nothing out of it. Matter of fact, they attacked me so bad I lost my job. They wasn't calling me into work. They kept calling me into court, and I had to keep
Yeah.
missing work. And plus the supervised visits and reunification counseling. My boss ain't putting up with this stuff. I
Right.
was 5 days a week. I had to go. It was crazy what they did to me. It was all unnecessary. They did this on purpose by
Right. Of
design.
course.
So I lost my job.
Well, they,
And,
they leverage to get you to settle. I don't know
oh,
what you,
exactly.
but
This is,
that's what they
they
do.
do this to everybody. I mean, I know lots of people, the more money you had, money was a curse for me in the court system, like it is for everybody around the United States, because that's all the attorneys, bad actors wanted to get at was the money. They didn't care about your child. They don't care about you. They don't care about the other party. They just want to maximize profit. I didn't know this at the time, but I found out later on.
Well, oh, all right. So let's keep going. What happens next?
Well, after I went through all that stuff, and like I said, the bankruptcy was in full flame. The trustee was attacking me right and left. Okay, I didn't want to file bankruptcy. I tried everything to avoid it. So anyway, in the bankruptcy case, what happened is that the trustee allegedly filed to remove the case out of the state court and put it in the federal bankruptcy court under an anniversary case or whatever they call it. Okay, so I was being sued by the United States trustee in a separate lawsuit action from my ex-wife's bankruptcy. But here's the kicker. Later on, I found out he never removed the case out of the state court. They was pretending. They put it on all different dockets except for my divorce filing document. And that's how crooked they are. They was trying to take the rest of my pension and annuity. Then after it got, they destroyed my life. Then they was going to attack me in the state court. After a while, I figured out what they was planning on. That's why they didn't file it in court, so they could keep attacking me in the state court and in the federal bankruptcy. It's all illegal, completely 100% illegal, but nobody does anything about it.
And was there anything you could have filed at the time or done at the time to change that?
Well, what I started learning in the beginning, I actually posted about it. I started researching about notifications. And I noticed in Pennsylvania, they're non-pleading. So what I would start doing is filing notifications to the court of, a particular subject of what they was doing to me, because that's all I had. I couldn't do anything else.
But I know what a notification is, but for the benefit of our audience, a notification, is that like a judicial notice that you file into the case? What is it?
Right. It's more or less like that. What it is, you're notifying the court of whatever subject matter you're having a gripe with. If it's your civil rights being violated, you filed on record. I researched this because if you ever take your case to the federal court, they look at the court docket to see if you challenge this and had a notice filed, believe it or not. And if you don't, then you ain't going to get anywhere in federal court if you don't, because if you don't challenge it, you can't do anything.
You could challenge it with objections directly during the hearing or trial, right? Or in your pleadings.
I did that too. I did what you just said, objections, everything. Nothing was working in the beginning.
Yeah, well, it won't until you got to go all the way to the mat with these people. And pull down with you is kind of what you need to do so they don't do it again.
Yeah, they at that particular time in 2016, they created where I was in 9 different jurisdictions or cases at one time.
Wait a second. So I know you have federal, you have bankruptcy, and you have your family matter case. Where are the other 6?
Well, they're all coming together in 2017. Well, of course, there was my divorce, custody, and equitable distribution. That's one. That's a separate matter. My child support, that's another separate matter. Then whenever I was filing an appeal in the Pennsylvania Superior Court, that's a separate matter. Pennsylvania Supreme Court, that's a separate matter. United States Supreme Court, that's a separate matter. The Federal Bankruptcy Court, then the lawsuit in the Federal Bankruptcy Court. And then in 2017, I had to file bankruptcy. So I was dealing with a lot. And there was another lawsuit in the state court for the foreclosure of my house that I had to fight. So they created all this nonsense to destroy me.
Of course, that's what they do. And they've got teams of people. How did you keep it all organized?
Well, for my first thing I had to do was control my anger. I had a lot of anger, like all of us around the United States. I had to learn to get my frustration out on something. I would smoke. I would walk. I would meditate to try to get all that negativity out of my mind. And that was what really helped me start learning more. And I was reading every single day the law and Constitution and understanding the right procedures, because I knew I was going to fight.
Yeah, I knew. I'm glad you brought that up because I don't think we've covered this on this show. But your state of mind matters. It used to consume me too, just thinking about all the injustices. And then I finally decided, you know what? This is a game. I know it's a game. I recognize it's a game. So I'm going to play it like a game, non emotional. And, I'm going to learn their rules and be better at it than they are, even though they've been practicing for 20 years. Obviously, this is a long, long journey. But once I found out it was a game or figured it out, nobody really told me, then everything changed for my mindset. And I treated them all, I thought them all as kindergarten. That's what they are. They're fucking kindergartens that are throwing sand and mud. But, this has serious consequences. So your state of mind is really important. If you don't have the right state of mind, you got to find your happy place somehow, some way, whatever works for you.
Yeah, nobody else can do that for you. You have the biggest thing I try to tell parents before they even attempt to try to fight in the court, they have to control their emotions somehow. They have to figure it out. Nobody can figure it out for them.
Yep. Okay.
They have to. That's your biggest step, because whenever you're dealing with a bunch of liars in the anti-family court system, they will lie and they will create a lot of different subject matters of verbal diarrhea, and that's not even true. And you have to learn to distinguish and fight the battles that you think you have a chance of winning, instead of the many distractions that they cause for you to go down rabbit holes. This is what they do to everybody. It's a common tactic.
Right. Okay. So let's continue on with your case. Sorry, we're diverting from the timeline because I want people to learn things as we go through this.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's thousands of people that listen to these episodes that are facing, whether it's the same thing as our guests or not. There's something I think that they should know, and mindfulness is one. So let's keep going.
Well, anyway, we'll bump
You're
it up.
not in jurisdictions.
Yeah,
and
I'm fighting in all these jurisdictions. They thought that they was going to bury me, but like I said, I controlled my emotions, and I studied psychology.
How did you afford to live at that point?
Well, at that particular time, I was broke. Okay.
Yeah.
I had
Where
to
were
get
you living?
a job. I was living at my brother's. I was homeless. I was sleeping on a couch for 5 years of my life while I'm fighting in court and working in the evenings and on weekends, because I had to leave my daytimes open because they would drag me into court and I had to fight.
And what was the kid situation like?
Oh, I didn't have one at that particular time. I was alienated. I think I only seen my daughter maybe, I'd say maybe 4, maybe 5 times. Like 3.5, almost 4 years. There's
no custody order at that time?
There's a custody order, but it's against me for supervised visits and reunification counseling.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
I couldn't even see
Bill?
No, not now, but at that
no, not
time.
now. I'm talking about at that time, because you had filed in 2013. Sometimes my memory, and it's 2017, 4 years later, and you still have this bullshit order.
Exactly. They created so much nonsense. The attorneys in my case created so much nonsense and allowed so much nonsense to happen. I had to fight everything I just told you. I had to, because if not, I would have got destroyed.
Oh yeah. You'd end up bankrupt, no money, never seeing your kids. They'd be alienated from you, and you'd be lucky if you saw them at 18. And these people, no, they don't give a shit. That's what I define as evil. How could you not care? But let's keep going.
Okay. So anyway, I had to file bankruptcy. I had to use a different attorney to do this. And at the time, I couldn't even find a bankruptcy attorney that would even help me out. I probably could have did it myself, but the way they was going, I figured it's better if I try to find one. I couldn't even find one. They all knew about my case. It was, I'm not kidding you. I actually had to go far away to find one, and I wouldn't tell them about my divorce case. I hurried up and borrowed the money and paid the attorney, so he didn't find out about my case. I went to like 20 attorneys and nobody would take my case because they knew about it.
Right. Yeah,
It
they
was
all talk.
crazy.
They all talk.
Yeah. Yeah, they talked. They didn't want to take it. So anyway, I smartened up and wouldn't say anything about my divorce case in the lawsuit and the bankruptcy. I hurried up and paid the attorney. Then after they got it, they're like, oh, shit.
Yeah. All right. So you get a bankruptcy attorney. You're in 9 different. Let's move forward on the timeline to the next major significant event after that. How did you consolidate these 9 or get rid of them?
Well, during this time also, whenever the trustee, it's called a notice of removal. Allegedly, it was never removed out of my state court case, like I mentioned before. But I had to file an inventory that should have been done in the divorce case, which wasn't done. And I brought it up. We filed it in the federal bankruptcy court of the inventory. And I also filed up how this master fee was put upon me without due process. Okay. Remember me saying this.
Yep.
November 18th, I think 2016, at that time, I'm backtracking a little bit. We had a hearing in front of a federal judge and the other attorneys didn't show up. And it was my first big victory in federal court. I actually beat the attorneys. I had that motion vacated or the motion denied, and it was vacated, the master fees, which was huge. I mean, for a pro se litigant to have a first victory like that was big. And that's whenever I got my first victory. But as we move forward, like I had to tell you that part because it sets it up for this part. I found out that they didn't properly remove the subject and have jurisdiction. So I tried to notify the federal judge. I said, Your Honor, we had another hearing. And I said, Your Honor, you don't have jurisdiction. Well, he got up and started leaving. I said, Your Honor, I got proof right here. It is not on the state court. I got it certified by the clerk of the court that you do not have jurisdiction, Your Honor. He stopped dead in his tracks. He said, let me see it. And I started bringing up it. So the bailiff took it up. He looked at it and he was pissed because he knows I'm right. So anyway, he said, we're going to have a hearing about it. So
why didn't you just
anyway,
admit that he didn't have jurisdiction right there?
Right. So anyway, he had a hearing about it, and we had I was against 5 attorneys or so, and they said they're lies, and I'm by myself, pro se. And
hold on a second did you have court watchers at that point?
Yeah, the only court watchers I had at that particular time was my family. It's hard to get people to go anymore.
Not now.
Yeah, it's hard.
No. If you're in the groups that I think you're in, it's quite easy actually. But let's keep going.
Okay. So anyway, the judge was pissed. He said he wanted to talk to the clerk that did this stuff because the clerk magically never filed it on my divorce case, filed it on all these other things in my case, not even part of my divorce case. They did it to hide it. So I challenged the jurisdiction, subject matter, and didn't consent, believe it or not. Okay. You know how these sovereigns like to do this shit? I actually did it. Okay. But I did it in the right way.
Right. There's a right way.
Not like they do it with their garbage that never works. I actually did it in the right way.
What was your argument?
I had to write a memorandum or a memorial or something like that, what it's called. All the attorneys wrote it. They all was against me. All the attorneys was against me. So we went into court. We had our hearing. And they lied and said all this bullshit. And I pointed out, I studied the laws. So after they was done lying, I went in there and spoke the truth and said, about all these laws that was violated, that I didn't consent to being sued, that I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And believe it or not, the judge ruled in my favor against all them attorneys. Me, a pro se litigant, won my argument.
Yeah.
That was huge. So it got remanded back to the state court to the proper jurisdiction where I could take them on that.
Well, so I'll just point out, as we said earlier, you need to box these judges in with rules and case. And so he can't possibly, if he hadn't brought any of that stuff up, he would have just mowed ahead, right?
Oh, exactly. But I had to follow the laws,
right,
and the rules of the federal bankruptcy court in order to do it.
They don't follow the law unless you bring up, hey, here's the law.
Exactly. So that was like my second. That was a huge victory for me.
Yeah.
But then, believe it or not, the trustee substituted my ex-wife out in my divorce case. I've never heard of this.
Wait. You got to explain this. How can a trustee have that kind of power to substitute anyone out of a divorce?
Because whenever when my ex-wife filed bankruptcy, now they're pissed because I beat them in the lawsuit case. They're freaking pissed that a pro se litigant did this. Now they're going to get even with me. So now they substituted my ex-wife. See, whenever somebody files bankruptcy, they step into the shoes of the other person, which would be my ex-wife. And so that's what he used. He used the federal bankruptcy laws to substitute my ex-wife out for himself. And
wait. So this must have been one leg of the divorce, the financial part.
Yeah. He entered the case for the equitable distribution part, but he was trying to stop me in custody.
He entered as what kind of party?
For my ex-wife.
No, he can't.
I'm not kidding you.
Well, then you know what I would have done. I would have gone after his assets. If he should have substituted himself in, then
I did.
Oh,
I
you did,
and they stopped me. Then they filed a lawsuit against me, and I beat them on it. But
exactly.
Yeah, the judge wasn't having it. I've never had a hearing in front of the president judge, by the way, ever. Yeah. Okay, you won't allow me, but I was being discriminated against. Well, but I had to keep using the laws. The trustee substituted my ex-wife out, and he also did it later on. Yeah, it's crazy.
I want to be substituted out of my divorce case. How does that work? Find some trustee and just, hey, come on in.
Yeah, he substituted my ex-wife out, and all this other stuff, to do the settlement agreement.
I have to ask, because this is a good learning experience for everybody. So who allowed him to substitute her out and him in? Was it a judge?
It was the president judge, yeah, because he used the federal bankruptcy laws, which he could do this, believe it or not, because he's a successor.
Yeah, but federal and state, she's the owner of the assets, right?
Right. So he was allowed to do this according to federal laws.
Well, I guess
Pennsylvania law.
A creditor can come in on divorce?
No, just the federal bankruptcy attorney.
Okay. That's just
trustee.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what he did. So not only was I fighting him in the bankruptcy, now I'm fighting him in my divorce, custody, and equitable distribution. Yeah. And that's not even the other part. I had different appeals filed. He intervened in my Pennsylvania Superior Court to stop me from getting transcripts in my domestic relation case of $186.
How?
He spent thousands of dollars to fight me, and they lost anyhow, but still.
But I don't understand the logic behind that.
There is no logic. The only logic that
was he spending?
He was vindictive because I was beating them.
Yeah, but whose money was he spending? His own?
Yes.
What an idiot. Okay. Yeah, you could call out people's names here. I do that all the time, and then I post it, and I say, come get me. I'm not removing it. So if you want to call out his name, go ahead.
No, his name's James White. He's retired now.
All right, but still. No. Should call these people out for what they are.
Yeah, he was the trustee in it. And even during this time, we had another hearing after we started getting a resolve of the equitable distribution claim. It was back and forth. I would write mine, they would write theirs, and that. Well, we finally came to a conclusion on one that was half decent anyhow, and we settled on it. So I said I would, because they wanted me to remove that appeal, so I used it as leverage because I was going to win. I said, yeah, I'll dismiss it. It's only requested cost of transcripts, which I knew the law. I would have won. And so I said, yeah, sure. Just to get out of the case. Why not? It saves me a lot of bullshit. Yep. So I said I would redo that. And they were supposed to do things too. Like one of the agreements was they removed themselves off my entire case. I said, I do not want you in this case from now on. And they agreed. Okay. That's huge. Okay. Yep. He fell for it just because of $186 transcript fees. Sometimes you can use your appeal process as a, leverage. You got to be smart about stuff. Like you said, playing chess.
It is playing chess. Leverage is the key in these cases. And you want to make it seem like it's going to be so expensive for them to fight you that they just roll over and get out the fuck out of the way.
Oh, I probably cost them $500,000 against me.
Yeah, good. Good. They're acting illegally. I wouldn't say good if you were acting illegally. I'm saying if you're going to act illegally and mess with someone's family and their finances, you deserve everything that comes to you.
Exactly. And, I had to take these people on and learn the laws better than they did. And they knew that I became pretty damn good at it. I would
Right.
file preliminary objections. I beat them in two different lawsuits and everything. And the federal judge knows this. And
All right,
whenever,
so let's stop right here because you're getting really good at this, and I want you to just quickly outline your process. Let's say you have a hearing or a trial coming up. What is it that you do in order? Just be real quick. In order to prepare for something like this, because there's no way you can know the law, right? You didn't spend 4 years in law school, so you must have a process. Like I use RIPC, and everyone that listens to this knows what that is. What's your process that you use?
well, the first thing I do is get my mind in order. And before I have any hearing, I would drink stress tea. Like I said, that's more important than anything else I can tell you right now. You got to be calm.
Right.
Okay. Then I would get all my filings, even though I'm not going to use anything, which I didn't. I would take in a box load of filings and pile it up on the desk in front of the judge. Just,
Psychological.
yeah. It was an intimidation tactic I did.
Okay.
And then any law that, like you said, it's overwhelming, I would just write down the laws. I would remember a lot of it, but I would jot them down.
So that's how you remember, is by writing it down. Same thing,
Right.
type it out.
And I would stay calm. And whenever they would lie, I would roll my eyes and start shaking my head. Okay. The judge studies body language.
Right.
So whenever they'd lie, which was almost every word out of their mouth.
And by the way, why aren't they reprimanding you? They're supposed to report them to the bar when they do that shit, but they don't. Every lie,
No.
you're not supposed to lie as a judicial officer of the court, but they continue to do so, and they're not being reported. So, I can lie, and the judge isn't going to report me, so I'll keep doing it. But okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was just a lie fest all the time. So I would stay calm, and after they was done with their lies, I would very nicely explain my situation to the judge, calm and rational, and use the law to do so. Okay, I would not the verbal diarrhea. I wouldn't go into all if they say Tim forgot to put toilet paper on the roll, I would just ignore that stuff and go right for the gusto, whatever the subject matter was. I wouldn't listen to all their verbal diarrhea.
Right.
I just go right for the subject matter. They want to get parents distracted. They couldn't do it with me.
So you wrote down the law, and then did you interpret that law a certain way and then present it? Because
exactly.
RIPC is research the law, get all the right codes, look at the local rules. That's the research part. Interpretation is, okay, this is how I interpret it, and here's case law to back that up. And
exactly.
Then here's how you present it, and then C is conclusion. Your Honor, you must rule this way because of what I just explained to you. That's
exactly what you just said is exactly what I was doing. Exactly.
Okay.
I got real good at it. I would interpret the law the way it's supposed to be done. Like an attorney is supposed to do this. I did it the right way.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's, and where would you go to get your research? Do you have subscription to Westlaw? What do you use?
No, absolutely not. I would Google, like say if a subject matter that I was dealing with, which was many, I would Google about it in Pennsylvania and read articles about it. Go to Google Doc and read case law to give me an idea of how that case went that was similar to mine. Okay, so now I can predict what's going to happen in my case by reading a similar case, see if it's going to be denied or granted. So whenever I do this, I would give myself the best chance at trying to win because I already knew the outcome if I went down these different paths. So I would do something different.
So you would do something different. I understand. And what was your understanding of the judges and their understanding of the law? Like, how often did they know the law, and how often did you have to educate them on the law?
Well, my state court judge, he was, I don't know. I don't know. It didn't seem like he knew a hell of a lot the way he was allowing me to be attacked all the time. But I really had a federal judge, that bankruptcy judge. He was really good at the law. And I think I gained his respect by how hard I was fighting and doing it the right way. And
Yeah.
whenever I did point out the law, he had a 10-minute recess and he brought this huge ass book. I'll never forget this big ass book out. And he read down the law that I was talking about, that they're not allowed to do this. He opened up and read it out loud. And he looked at the attorneys and he looked at me and started smiling. Mr. Schilling is right. Do you know how great of a feeling that is whenever you're up against all these attorneys and a federal chief judge says that? That's huge.
Right. So I find it about, well, let's say it's a standard deviation. I find that the middle of the curve, most judges know, but when you start getting to the left or right of it, they don't know, and you have to educate them on it. And so you just have to be prepared for that. Like standard little things, the judges pretty much know the code, but when you get outside of it and it gets technical, you have to educate them. So I just wanted to bring that up. But
Oh yeah, you're right. But like I said, even the federal judge, he knew that I was right on the law, and he actually would rule in my favor. And he actually called out the attorneys and said that they do sloppy legal work. The entire law firm didn't
yeah,
say anything about my legal work because I did half decent, but the
right.
attorney's legal work was all sloppy. How do
All
you
right.
think that a law firm felt being destroyed by a pro se litigant that never graduated high school?
That's I mean, most people here are going to be happy to hear that, so that they can do
Yeah,
it themselves. But
it doesn't matter how smart you are. It's how freaking determined you are as a parent
yeah,
to say, I had enough of this shit and I had enough and I'm fighting back.
right,
That's
right.
whenever you got to make your mind up to do things the right way, like I did.
Yeah. All right. Let's get back on track. I wanted
Okay.
to note because people, you practice RIPC, I practice RIPC. We did not talk before this meeting about this, so it is a proven way to win arguments or to recognize that your argument's going to lose. What I found, so don't do it. So make sure that you're smart about it. Okay, so let's go to the next point in your divorce, the next significant event.
Okay. Well, like say, we was talking about having the attorneys off. Well, we had a hearing and I asked the judge, I said, hey, they was supposed to, we had an agreement for, I do these things, which I already did. They didn't do this. They're in violation of our agreement that we have. And I said, Your Honor, I said, I even joked with the trustee about it. I want a divorce from the trustee. I want a divorce from him. I do not want to live with him. I don't want to be involved with him. They all started laughing so freaking loud in the courtroom. It wasn't even funny, including his own attorneys, because I asked for a divorce.
I love it. I would have done the same exact thing. I would have said the same thing, and I would have said, Your Honor, I haven't received his FL 150 showing me all his assets. I would have asked.
Yeah, well, all of a sudden the attorneys, well, Your Honor, we're getting this stuff done. We're going to have all this stuff done and all this other stuff, and we're going to be filing and removing all that. And he goes, Mr. Schilling, please don't file any more stuff. And I said, well, Your Honor, I said, I won't file any more stuff, but if there's anything else that comes up, I will file because I want this over with. And he goes, Mr. Schilling, this is what's going to happen. If the attorneys don't remove themselves in 30 days, I will deal with it. Are you okay with that? I said, of course, Your Honor. I said, as long as they're removed like they agreed upon from all my life, all my hearings, everything, the entire thing. I said, you'll never hear a peep out of me. Now, remind you, I probably filed about 100 to 200 things in his courtroom, so he didn't want to see me anymore.
Of course not.
No, he knew I was getting good.
I'm surprised they didn't try to label you frivolous or mentally.
Oh, they did. They filed a lawsuit against me, and I destroyed them.
Yeah, I did.
I said, prove with one court order, out of all my hundreds of filings, that I have one frivolous filing.
Right.
Prove it.
Right.
And you know what? They couldn't prove it because I've never had one.
Yeah.
I followed the law.
Our statute is a little bit more strict than that, but they couldn't do it either. Okay, so we move forward. You wanted to get a divorce from the trustee because the trustee wanted to assume your wife's position. I would have filed for, okay, well, I have to see your assets. You called it an inventory list, I think, or something like that.
I did that. I filed for
Yeah.
APL. I'm the only pro se litigant in the entire country to file for APL against the United States Federal Bankruptcy Trust. It's never happened before. I said he refuses to pay me. Yeah, I did it. No one's ever done that in the United States.
I would have done
did
it. I would have done it, but nobody's ever.
They filed a lawsuit against me, but still, it was just the point that
What
I
is it?
used the law where I was allowed to do this. And
Right.
the judge didn't like it, and neither did the trustee. I
Oh,
tried everything. I'm telling you, I became very adaptable and open-minded about things,
yeah,
and figured, as long as I go with the law and tried my best to do everything the right way, it's going to be
yeah,
hard for them to deny my pleadings, as far as frivolous.
yeah. Okay. All right. So you got through that. Then what?
Well, after this, now after I got a couple of these things out of the way, now I could go after custody. Now, mind you, I didn't have a custody thing. And my ex-wife knew that I was getting pretty damn good at beating attorneys in court now. Okay. So I asked my ex-wife, I said, hey, how about if we get this straightened up? 50-50 custody. I just want peace and I won't bother. I won't say nothing. Whatnot. She was argumentative at first. I said, it's up to you. I said, if you don't agree, I'm going to take you into court. And I guarantee you, I will not lose. No matter what attorney you're going to get, I will not lose. And she knows this. And then all of a sudden, then she started changing her mind probably after she talked to an attorney and figured out how much money it's going to cost her against me. And because I became very knowledgeable and very well known around the community here on how good I became. So she agreed to do a 50-50 custody. I do everything by the proper procedures in Pennsylvania. I create all my own legal documents. I wrote my own stipulation agreement. She signed it. It's perfect. I did my own modification. I follow all the rules. You wouldn't believe how many rules you got to do just to do a simple petition for modification in Pennsylvania. And parents don't do it right. I did it right. And that's how I got it. The judge that hated me granted my order
Mm-hmm. Why is
that
he
I
hate
created.
you know the law? You're citing the law. Why does the judge hate you?
Oh, because they don't want a pro se. We're being discriminated against.
Oh, for
Because
sure.
if more pro se litigants start winning in court, that takes away from the attorneys. Think about it.
Yeah, I know, but the judge isn't supposed to care. I'm being a little bit rhetorical, but the judge isn't supposed to care, right?
Well, he's supposed to, but do you think he really does? Like you
No,
said, you had to box him in. That's exactly what I was doing.
you got to box them in, but and the judges are supposed to give you some leeway in interpretation of things. They never do. They make it harder. They use
Exactly.
discretion to rule against you as a pro se, and then rule for the attorney because it's the good old boy, good old girl club. But
Yeah. I
they're
mean,
not all that
like,
way. I have to be careful. I have to be fair. They're not
right.
all that, but I'd say most of them that I've faced and what I've heard from, I'm only hearing the bad cases, of course, but most of what I've heard is they don't do that.
No. And, I'll just go down. I know been on for a while, but I'll go down on the process just to file a petition to modify custody in Pennsylvania. Well, first you have your petition to modify custody. In your petition to modify custody, you have to have your pleading of why you feel you should have custody rights. Then you have to have a notice with it that they have to, if they can't afford counsel, that they can contact the bar in the area. Okay,
Yeah.
that's part of your pleading. Then on top of that, you have to have a verification statement that everything you're saying is true, a Pennsylvania certificate of compliance that you're in compliance of all the rules, a certified certificate, and you have to have a scheduling order, and you have to have a regular court order created for just one pleading. And then you have to have a criminal abuse affidavit filled out by both parties, filed on record, and you have to have a confidentiality form filled out and filed on record by both parties. That's not simple. Not too many pro se litigants can even do that.
Yep.
I had to figure it out. I do it. I do everything by the rules.
How did you figure out how to fill out those things correctly?
I read.
Yeah, but there's not templates out there, is there? Or maybe there are.
No, I had to read.
Right. Well, I'll tell you how I have seen other people do it, and I've done it too. There are actual pleadings on Case Text and Trellis that you could download with a subscription, and you could see how professionals do it. That's a good way, one way to model it. Obviously, you can't just copy it. You have to put in your own facts and make sure it.
Exactly. You got to do
You're
what you
pleading.
got to do in order to do things right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's continue on with the timeline. So what's next?
Well, now everything's out of the way. Now I got 50-50 custody. Okay. I
And how
know
did
the
you?
Pennsylvania laws.
Yeah. So what was the turning point to get 50-50? A lot of people are going to want to know this. So if you went years without seeing your kids or supervised bullshit visitation, how did you flip it? What was the key facts?
The key fact is that my ex-wife got bombarded with paperwork almost every freaking week. And
So
I
they just
started beating
buried them.
attorneys in court, and she knew I became very knowledgeable in the law.
Okay, so you buried them with paperwork.
Yes,
They'll
I
do-
flipped the roles.
Yeah, you flipped the rules. So this was a stipulation. It wasn't a ruling.
No, it was my custody is a court order. I
No,
created a stipulation.
yeah. No, it's not a knock on your legal acumen. It is a strategy that they do to you. They did to you actually in the beginning, and that you did right back to them with filing nothing frivolous. But you're like, okay, you're going to play this game. I'm going to play it right back at you, and you probably made it so expensive for everybody
Exactly.
that they're like, fuck, let's just stipulate and move on.
Yeah, they tried to sue me in the federal court. They lost. They tried to sue me for $35,000 in the state court. They lost. In fact, I even got a default judgment on them against attorneys. Look that one up. If a pro se litigant does that in family court.
Yeah. Okay. Go on. So 50. Now, what's left of your case? Just the financial part of it?
Well, like I said, I had a bucket list and I had to get all these off. And that was one of the things, 50-50 custody. And that was down there like number 5, believe it or not. Okay. I had to deal with these other things first, so I didn't go to jail. Okay. Now, since I won my arguments in all 5 of them. Now I got my custody now. Now I started working on her about termination of child support. Okay. I know the Pennsylvania laws and they hate me in there because I spouted the laws off and they hated me. But anyway, I talked my ex-wife into saying, hey, if you don't want to terminate child support, I'm going to take you in. And there's a good chance that you're going to be paying me child support, although I do not want it. I just want peace. I said, so that's up to you too. If you want to get an attorney, fight me, you're going to lose. I said, trust me on this. Go ahead, get an attorney. Mm-hmm. So she must have looked into it and found out she would have lost because she makes more money than me. And in Pennsylvania, they have a shared custody rule where it's a different calculation and she made more money than me. So she decided, I created a stipulation agreement, filed my petition to terminate child support. Judge granted it.
Nice. Okay.
And he didn't have to grant it. But the way my verbiage was in there made it hard for him not to grant it.
What was the verbiage that you used?
Whenever you do something, you always have to maintain the best interest of the child, just like in any state or every state has it. So you have to have the financial ability put in there on what parent does what to maintain that the child is not going to be financially destitute. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that was my verbiage that I put in there. I gave my ex-wife control of all the tax for my daughter as long as she keeps the insurance up on my daughter. You see how I did that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not worried about money.
Yeah.
I let her have the money, but she has to keep the insurance up on my daughter. And whenever the judge seen this and it was all done, he didn't have a leg to stand on because I covered all my bases on financial part.
And you saw that in what the rules of the bench I use a judge's bench guide, and it kind of I don't know if you've ever used this, but it kind of lists out here are the things that they need to look at in a particular motion or hearing or.
Well, in Pennsylvania, it's Pennsylvania rules 1910.
Okay, so there's a rule around.
Yes, so you just go down through the rules and you got to read them and understand what you're doing, so you can do good. I became very good. This just didn't happen overnight.
Well, it's research, it's interpretation, and by the way, sometimes when you don't know how to interpret these things, I go to YouTube and I'll just search on that particular rule or something that's related to it, and then you get a pretty quick idea of okay, this is how I should interpret it, because sometimes this legalese is hard to interpret.
Exactly. If you can't, like I said, that's that thing I keep coming back to. You have to have a clear and focused mind. Okay. That way you can understand the rules. You can understand the laws. And if you can't do this, you're not going to be able to beat these people in court.
All right. Keep going.
So anyway, I got the child support all done. Now I'm just about all done. Okay. I fixed everything that they screwed up in my entire case myself. I fixed everything myself as a pro se litigant. And then I found out the trustee.
Oh, okay. Finish your thought. I want to question you on something. Go, finish your thought. Sorry.
Okay. Well, then the trustee retired, and then they abandoned the claim. See, they took $60,000 off my ex-wife. All right. Yeah. Because they took the pension and annuity. Well, I seen this, so I was negotiating with the attorneys for about 8 months to get that money back because I didn't want the attorneys to get that money. Okay. It's bullshit. I didn't want them to have nothing.
Yeah.
So anyway, they didn't want to reopen the federal bankruptcy case. So I started studying federal bankruptcy law. Okay. Everything. So I had to do a test motion. In other words, I was fly fishing. So I filed a motion of clarification with the federal judge. He denied my motion, but not because of anything bad, because I didn't pay a fee, believe it or not. So I said, okay, I got my hold of my ex-wife, paid the fee. Now remember, I didn't find any case law in the United States that would allow for a pro se litigant to reopen a federal bankruptcy case, have the attorneys removed off of a settlement agreement, and then redo it in the state court and have this same judge that don't like you sign the order. I can't find anything. So I was doing this all, just out of my experience, my legal knowledge. Yep. So make a long story short, the trustee said he's not open. I said, fine. So we went to court and I filed everything according to the law in federal bankruptcy court. We had a hearing. We came to a conclusion. They consented to remove themselves and give the claim back to my ex-wife. Okay. So I got that consent order. That's another court order grant, that got like it should have been in the first place. Right. Then I had to go back in the state court and have the judge, I had to create another one and have the judge sign it and grant my order to redo the settlement agreement. And then I had to have my quadros redone. That's the pension and annuity. I create all my own stuff. And he granted it. I even had to call the judge back from retirement because another judge probably wouldn't rule on it. So he granted my motion for that too.
Okay.
And because she worked with me over custody and me terminating child support, I was more than happy to do the research to get her back $60,000. So it worked out for her by working with me instead of going against me.
Yeah. Okay.
And, even currently today, my daughter, she's staying with me. Me and my ex-wife, we have peace. There's no more court nonsense. Well, she lives her life. I live mine.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have peace had you not done this, right?
If I didn't know the law and I didn't fight back by using the law, I would have never seen my daughter again and probably be in jail.
Yeah, and I'll say it's worse than that. I'll say that these attorneys are going to fight as hard as you're going to fight for yourself. Not even close. And some of them be collaborating or collaborating with the other side.
They all do.
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't say that. Like you said, there are good attorneys, but in my experience, I couldn't find. I mean, it was hard for me to find any. Those two good attorneys, half decent, but I had to hurry up and get them off the case before they got any worse. You know what I mean? Yeah. I got a bifurcation of a divorce from one and a bankruptcy, and I had to get them off before they got mixed up with that nightmare.
Yeah, totally understand. All right, so what is it that you, looking back, or somebody that's just starting out the journey that's similar to yours, what would you recommend that they do?
Well, to put a stop to it, although nobody knows about it, they could create a stipulation agreement. I mean, if you're going to get a divorce, a stipulation agreement for custody right in the beginning. That way you resolve it before you get into court and the attorney sees all this money and then they come after you.
Yeah.
You can get custody resolved. You can also do the child support thing that both parents are going to maintain the financial stability of the child. That way you cut a lot of this nonsense out. I know if I would have known just back then, this is exactly what I would have did.
Yeah. And why do you think the attorneys? I know the answer. Why do you think the attorneys didn't do that out of the gate?
Make money. More chaos, the more money they make.
Exactly. Now it could be argued. I like to play devil's advocate that they thought they're going to roll over you, and so they were actively taking advantage of that. There's, you know, it's a game, so yeah, they can do that, but it's not in the best interest of the family or the kids, like they claim family court is supposed to be. That's total nonsense. That should never be spoken in a family court ever again because it's not true.
Now, why do you think I called it the anti-family court system?
Yeah.
Because I call it by the proper name.
Right. And why is family court adversarial? Why isn't it something that's trying to make the worst experience in your life goes as smooth as possible? Why is it adversarial? Why are you throwing gasoline on a fire? It's ridiculous.
That just comes back to what I said. If they have chaos and they have a Goldilocks parent ready to play and a targeted parent, and they see how much assets, they can continue this nonsense to rob both parents.
Yeah.
It's all about money. It's all about money. It's not about doing the right things or following the laws. It's all about the money. If they followed the laws, cases would be resolved probably within a year if they actually followed the law, but they don't. Why is that? Because the chaos is created. They can make money. They will rob a parent out of every single dime that they can get.
Yeah, it's important for people to hear that. I think it's crystal clear. The attorneys don't even deny it to me, privately. I'm going to have one come on here again. I've had a couple of attorneys. Obviously, I've got a lot of attorney friends and some former judges and some current judges that are not in this state that I consult with, and they all say the same thing. And
yeah, there's good attorneys and there's good judges. Exactly. Not everybody is evil.
I say the same.
Like parents, not all parents are evil, but unfortunately, they want to create one parent to look evil so they can justify their falsification on robbing you. That's what they do to everybody.
Yeah, and I would agree they're good actors in a bad system. Right. And it's a flawed, bad system. Anti-family court it's not far off. If you get two good attorneys and two normal parents, you could have a good outcome. You could have
exactly.
But if we have one bad one, the whole thing turns into a dumpster fire.
A nightmare. I didn't know none of this stuff in the beginning. None of us did. No, I didn't know jack shit whenever I first got into this. But boy, did I learn.
Yeah, that's why I am out there preaching. One last question before we wrap up. Would you get married again?
Absolutely not.
And is that because you'd be married to the state as well as your wife, or is that just because you're so traumatized from this experience?
Well, it's a little bit of both. I know that I would be married to the state, and it's because of the trauma, and not too many targeted parents, not too many outside people understand the mental abuse that we take every single day by these people. And it wouldn't be fair to somebody to come into my life that don't know none of this stuff, that would see me get triggered over the littlest things. And it wouldn't be fair to that person because I couldn't be who I used to be. It changed me, and it changes all of us.
Yes, it does. All righty. Well, we're going to wrap things up. Tim, and
I did want to mention one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I want parents to know out there they're not alone. I was very fortunate to learn how to fight back. I probably been denied 100 times in court, maybe more. But on the bright side, I took it as a learning experience. Don't get down on yourself. Learn how to fight. I have about probably 20 court orders that have been granted, and that's unheard of for a pro se litigant. I also got a default judgment against attorneys. I stopped the attorneys on lawsuits against me. Anything you can think of, they came at me, I stopped them. So don't think that you can't fight back. You can, but you got to believe in yourself, and you got to follow the rules that they have. Not this sovereign stuff. It won't work.
And the fact they'll label you crazy.
Exactly.
RIPSI is the way to do it. And study that process. Remember, it's research, interpretation, presentation, and conclusion. That is the sound way of doing it, and it'll tell you whether you're going to win your case or not, unless you have a judge abusing their discretion. So with
Exactly.
that, I will wrap things up. Tim, pleasure to have you on, and glad there was a success.